Alright, time for another draft physics video presentation. Anyway, comments first, and then we'll do some electric universe stuff. And yeah, that's all I'll say. Fairly funny video. I'll play it and laugh at it. Anyway, I wish I had you as my physics teacher. Would have been the best class overall. I actually had a dream about having my own TV show, like news show or something. Made a lot of sense to me that yes, that should happen. There was some reason it happened. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was quite exciting. But anyway, everybody is so full of shit. It's just so easy to point it out. Anyway, this was very entertaining. Glad you are exposing that fraud. So it's a Ken Wheeler video. And well, I'll get to the comments eventually. Somebody defending, like Ken isn't just lying. And as I pointed out, he knows. He's not stupid. So, I mean, obviously he's made ferrocells, so he knows how they work. He knows what they're mechanically made out of. And he's pretending, okay, that he doesn't know that. So, that's lying. +1. Aha. Tin Man keeps making a fool of himself. Well, I don't know if that's what he's doing, but whatever. I just think this idea these people have that they're going to find some unfound source of something called energy. It's just kind of silly. I mean, there's lots of energy we can grab. I mean, we can blow up atoms, and we can do the wind thing and the solar thing, and you might even be able to steal something from gravity. Gravity's a little harder to do. You have to make a very big thing. But because there is rain falling, so to speak. I mean, rain. You could steal some of the energy because something else put the rain up, and you can collect the down part. And so we've sort of been over all of those. We've sort of seen all of the things, the places where we can catch the down part. But, I mean, all of these are, like hydro is gravity. I mean, it's a way of stealing gravity. Alright, his super brain buddies, whatever that is, should be giving him better advice. I don't know whether he's taking advice. They appear to be happy letting Brad make a fool of himself. He said that twice, so, poor Brad. I didn't know his name was Brad, but whatever. It's not a great name. Gary isn't a great name either. I just mean, unfortunate that some of us get stuck with crappy names. Anyway, logical inconsistency is unforgivable in a scientist. Why are you assuming Ken is lying? So again, and not just wrong. Well, because I know he knows what I know about the ferrocell. And once you know that about it, you know that, oh yeah, all these iron filings aren't moving where the light is. They're really not. That they're doing something entirely different, and it's an optical illusion in the sense that we're seeing something, but what we're seeing has a much more complex truth. Just like when the pigeon pops out of the magician's, into his hand. There's a complex truth. Somebody doing card tricks. There's a complex truth. Well, you don't even need to say it's complex. It's just that there's a more elaborate truth that you're not seeing because it happened too fast. He flipped the card into half the deck. He didn't really shuffle them. That kind of thing. And so the ferrocell is just one of those devices. It's like having a hat that rabbits pop out of. Well, the truth is, though, if you know mechanically, oh, the rabbit's in the hat, and or he's in the table. Okay. The uploader still believes in planets. I don't know who that is. Yes, I believe in planets. How can people be this insane? Einstein abandoned his child, and we had two of them, and one illegitimate, and banged two of his cousins. That deserves aggressive tactics, I'd say. Why does it? What does it have to do with the scientific argument? Oh, that's right, nothing. So even if Einstein was right, we should throw away what he discovered. Let's say he actually discovered something that was true. I mean, I don't believe he did, but let's say he did. you would throw it in the waste bin because Einstein was a shithead as a human being. You know, you're just too stupid, so I think we'll just block you because, yeah, these comments are too stupid. Alright, so this is the funny link to the electric universe. I mean, I wish you would put something here to give some context to links. You know, like, the electric universe is a religion. Because this one kind of proves it. Anyway, alright. This guy is a basehead in Jizz Mom's basement. So this is something called Suck It, Swallow. And he's making, you know, accusations of somebody, okay, trying to act like he ain't gay. You're the one with the name Suck It Swallow. I mean, most heterosexual types actually do vaginal sex thing. Like, that's sort of their thing, you know. And blowjobs are like, I really don't like this chick much. You know. I refuse to have a battle of Wida with an unarmed opponent. So, yes, this is all bold talk from anonymous coward. I mean, just such coward. Dickless coward. So, you have a micro penis and you are, sadly, a closet homosexual. Okay, we got that. I've watched 3 minutes of this dildo. So, again, he's the one with these obsessions with ways of functioning. That you know, just sort of revealing what his obsessions are. And I've seen enough. Don't even waste your time watching it. So he's giving people advice. So that's not nice. Total loser. Except I'm not a total coward like you. I'm totally ballless and dickless like you. Alright, so we'll just block that. Just for the screen name. I mean, grow the fuck up. Ugh. God. I mean, I just wish that people did have to have the record of their life put somewhere. Like, we all did have a tombstone somewhere, a marker. And that marker now could be full of, like, SD cards. And all this stupid fucking bullshit you do in your stupid fucking loser jackass life has to be on those cards and playable. So somebody can see just what a douche you were in your life. That's the, you know, there should really be accountability. Your whole family should be disgraced. All your relatives should be going, oh fuck, you know. Damn, he's making us look like such assholes. I mean, really, that's what I admire about Asian culture, is they did have a time when they really held people to a standard. You know, and you actually did have to kill yourself when you disgraced your family. You know, you people are just such pieces of shit. Alright, you so sexy subscribed. Well, I don't know if that's terribly relevant, but thank you. Owen is cool, so I don't know who the fuck Owen is. So I think Owen might be the guy who was connected to Miles Mathis doing the stupid pi is 4 thing. He way young to understand as well as he does. He's like 30 the fuck 5 or something. God, pathetic. Owen is good guy. We've got the periods in the wrong place. The Jews are the huge problem. The Jews are a huge problem. I think he talks about them so much because they are unmentionables. Heck, look at what they did in Florida. I mean, you people are just fucking crazy. I mean, this scapegoating bullshit. You want to take no responsibility that human beings are assholes, and that's all of them. Jew, Muslim, American, humans are just selfish jackasses, all of them. And you keep thinking that if some other bug was in charge, the other bug would be doing something so much more dignified and decent. No, it's a bug planet, asshole. Brought by Owen and Vox. I'm impressed. Fuck you. I don't even know what that means. Great to see the bears here. Nice video. Bears. It's not great to see bears in civilization. It's fucking retarded. So you should be eaten by a bear, frankly. Asshole. Or your child should be. Sorry, I mean, I don't want to make some innocent victim. If somebody has to be eaten by bears, it should be the assholes who think bears are a great idea. Yes, let's have them just walking down our sidewalks. It makes perfectly good, rational sense. No, it doesn't. Oh, God. Yeah, they're just like butterflies, except, yeah, they weigh a lot more and have bigger teeth and you know, stuff like that. Pathetic. Alright, so this is the Electric Universe's putrid understanding of reality.
It's from the Electric Universe, brought to you by the Thunderbolts Project at thunderbolts.info.
La 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 la. We're going to try to brainwash you because we're going to talk like little faggots. Everybody loves a little faggoty talk. And we're gentle and kind and we love you. We think you're special even if you are, you know, a few 100 pounds overweight and smell like puke. We love you if you subscribe and send us some money. We love you.
Quantum experiments have long demonstrated that subatomic particles...
Okay, they haven't done any of this. Quantum experiment, first, there is no fucking such thing. Second, they haven't long done anything, so that's bullshit. And demonstrate is something you're supposed to do with evidence, and the evidence is so fucking pathetically weak, it's not even... shouldn't be worth even considering conviction on such little evidence.
somehow know about each other.
Okay, so that somehow they've proven entanglement, that the right and the left hand gloves didn't really come out as left and right hand gloves, and there's no such, that's not possible that that could be the simple truth. They haven't proven any of that.
And at great distances.
So we have no real hard evidence because we can't use this faculty at all. It's completely irrelevant. Somehow it knows how to do ESP with this other thing. They know secrets about each other. And somehow we can't glean any of that information at that instantaneous knowledge speed. It's just a fable, a silly little fruity story about, you know, the banana man and the apple tree guy. It's just made up crap.
Institutional science utilizes terms such as quantum...
So they hate institutional science, and yet when they're talking wacky shit that they like, all of a sudden institutional science knows something smart. No, this is the dumbest part of physics. The most irresponsible, the most unevidenced, the most speculative, you know, it's just bullshit.
Entanglement and spooky action to describe the phenomenon. But
yeah, it's at their liability and at their damnability that they would sit there and present this as a fact when they have just as little possible evidence as you could have.
The electric universe theory offers a very different perspective.
Let's understand, all the entanglement experiments involve using a concept like polarization, which physics doesn't even understand. They don't even understand the mechanism of polarization. And yet they're supposed to draw conclusions about experiments that are using polarization as the key function in their detections. And then they pretend that they can tell, they make an emphatic statement that, well, any interaction collapses the wave function. And then they pretend a polarizing filter isn't an interaction. They pretend it's passive when logically, you know, it's not passive. It actually changes the photons that go through it. So what the fuck? This is just so fucking irrational.
The speed of light limit to communication imposed by the theory of...
Yes, it's not imposed by the theory of relativity. So this is more horseshit, that there was some fact that Einstein discovered that proves that there's this limit. Absolutely not. He merely stated it's a limit. He merely stated that that's the way it works, and then they just did this Lorentz contraction thing where they just said we're just going to put this formula in to force it to work that way. So yes, mathematically it'll have to be that way because we've engineered the math with a little gimmick that says to prevent infinities. To basically say you can never cut, you can just keep cutting things in half forever, but you're never going to get to the speed because every time you try to, you can only go there at a half length at a time, blah, 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 blah. So you can only half your distance. You can never take a full step kind of argument. Well, that's not even the best analogy. But the point is, it's just a gimmick. There's nothing in the concept of relativity that tells you, oh yeah, this light has a constant speed. The evidence tells us there's a constant speed. Okay, not anything in a theory anywhere.
Relativity is not a universal speed limit. Physicist Wal Thornhill describes how this can be observed in our own celestial neighborhood.
Well, it can't be observed. So again, this is more horseshit. We don't observe it, and we can't, presently we can't make a device to really observe it, let's say, just because the only devices we can make are very close, and the speed of light is very hard to detect with things very close to each other. And so we don't have any really great way to observe it. So we can only theorize on how things function. And so Wal Thornhill is a fucking idiot. If he thinks something's moving faster than the speed of light or something's communicating faster than the speed of light, because there's absolutely no evidence that that happens.
He writes, if gravity traveled at the slow speed of light, the Earth would be pulled to where the sun appears in the sky, and not the sun's real position in space.
Right, and this is just more misunderstanding. I mean, if you don't understand how something works, this is what you conclude. So he's basically arguing that the Earth doesn't have any gravity until something shows up, and then it gets gravitational. And so then everything that's affecting the two things, the only effects that are happening are between those two things. And it doesn't have to do with the fact that the Earth is already covered with a whole bunch of stuff that is gravitational, stuck in positions, stuck in the circumstance of pushing down, like I'm doing right now. I'm pushing. I'm actively doing it. It's a fact. If you put a scale under me, I weigh, 150 whatever pounds, and clearly I'm pushing. So where's there an argument here? Where's there a rational argument? There's no rational argument. I'm already creating gravity that the Earth will express. So they just don't understand how gravity works. You don't fall into the gravity you create. You fall into the gravity something else made by being there.
This would result in a slingshot effect and toss planets out of the solar system in short order.
So obviously this doesn't happen with magnetism and all this stuff because, the distances are much shorter. Okay, so clearly the speed of light isn't very important. But there's really no argument that things would fly out of the universe by the fact that you just make this a law. This is the gravitational mass of the Earth. That mass, being in a collection, creates gravity. So as long as you understand that the gravity isn't created by the object that gets affected by gravity, it adds to gravity as it gets closer and closer. It becomes part of the thing that's gravitational. But the gravity it creates isn't the gravity it's falling into. The argument's that simple. The counter argument.
Observations of close binary stars where the effect will be extreme and quickly noticeable show that gravity must operate at a speed in excess of 20 billion times the speed of light.
So there's no proof for any of this, okay? There's no calculations or anything else. Obviously binary stars aren't that far apart, blah, 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 blah. The speed of light would be semi-irrelevant.
Prevent spiraling orbits. The sun and the Earth have instantaneous information about their location.
So that's his conclusion. Again, based on no information. We have no physical evidence that any instantaneous communication is taking place between celestial bodies in any way whatsoever. So it's just horseshit. So I guess I'll draw just a little, just to again emphasize the point. and yeah, maybe talk a little bit about. See, this has a sort of something to do with thermodynamics and equilibrium, and it's almost like the Earth. Now, the Earth gets hit by the sun's energy constantly, and it is warmed up, and then it becomes equalized. So, as much as it seems like the Earth must be absorbing energy, you know, like net absorption because it's warm on the surface and all this stuff is happening, it must be that we must be absorbing energy, but we're really not. We're expelling as much energy as we're absorbing. But the point is that you have to sort of understand, but no, that only happened after, okay, the initial absorption. So it's the whole net is always, the net condition is always a deficit, because it took you a while to warm up the Earth, to get it up to temperature. So the first energy that had to go in is the energy that didn't get anywhere. So I could make an argument that something's absorbing energy, or it's slowing light down, let's say. You know, light goes in and it gets slowed down. Well, the first beam of light is the one that you're really going to notice because it's not there. There's nothing here. So light left here, light should be here, but it's getting slowed down. So it didn't get here, and there's a whole period of time, okay, where there's zero light that gets here, and then the light finally from the delay gets here, and all of this gets delayed since this source keeps pushing it out. This looks like, oh, now it's a constant beam. Okay, so now there's equilibrium in the sense that once you've gotten through the first delay, it doesn't seem like there's a delay anymore because the light just keeps coming through, because you're seeing light from 4 minutes ago. It's like the light from a star keeps hitting us. But there obviously was a delay in the light getting to us originally, right? The first photon there was no light we could see while it traveled here. Okay, but once it got here, oh yeah, there's a ton of light. Even though there's this huge time lapse where it couldn't get here because it wasn't here yet. But once it gets here, it looks like a constant stream. It doesn't look like it's being delayed in any way. And that's sort of an equilibrium argument. But the catch to the equilibrium argument is that in the real terms, that net is still there, in the sense that you have to sort of think of it in terms of the piece you see is always the piece that is the net. The net condition is the condition you're going to be reacting to. So, in a sense, you go from, it's like, let's see if I could do it by adding numbers maybe. So if you had -1, and then you did a +1, and then you did, the next logical step would be -1. Well, see, you started with a -1, and then you have a +1, so that's equilibrium. So now you're back to 0. But then you have to do this -1 again. And so if we understand like magnets are polarized, you know, and this is the right-hand rule stuff, you're going to start with a north somewhere, and then you're going to have a south, and then you're going to have a north face again. So it's always this, you're never going to have two, you're never going to be +1 ahead. See, since you started with a -1, your only options are, you can be at the 0 state, or you could be at the -1 state, or you could be at the 0 state, or you could be at the -1 state. You'll never be at the +1 state. So that's the thing you're reading with gravity. So essentially the deficit's already built in. Now it appears like equilibrium because you could say for some quanta of time, there is no gravity pulling me. I'm at the neutral state. But then I go back to the -1 state because the cycle keeps going. So it's like this thing, the loop. So it's the same argument for like the idea of capturing momentum in a circle. Well, yeah, if you capture it in a circle, all of this equalizes it, but you never undo this first deficit. So you're always, okay, so the circle is 0, but this is still movement this way. So that movement still has to be accounted for. That's the real motion that's still built in. That's the real angular momentum that still exists. Even though it's trapped in a circle, where it went in still exists as a first cause. And that first cause means the net can never be a positive. It always has to be that. The other way to look at it is, another way to look at it is too. See, because they think gravity is communicating back and forth in straight lines, and that's not how gravity works. So how gravity really works is, your effect of absorbing energy in this motion. So you absorb a piece of energy going this way. Well, what you're actually absorbing could be a piece of energy going this way, or a piece of energy going this way. Anything with momentum in this direction. So any vector that has a component this way will be counted as an absorption. So you're making gravity over here. And you're making, yes, of course, you might make gravity here, and you might make gravity here, and you might make gravity here. You'll make gravity in all of these locations, okay, in terms of absorbing a piece of momentum in a direction. So when I move this way, it just means that some portion of my energy that could be going all kinds of ways has been changed from this angle to this angle. It's changed an angle. And the same thing's happening when gravity is being expelled by something. It's being expelled in all of those directions. So if it moves this way, it could have moved this way by changing the force vector in any one of these angles. That is, changing it from this position to this position, making it more forward, more forward, more forward. And that's how gravity works. So gravity spreads. It doesn't go from here to here. So when I'm involved, so when two things are gravitationally involved with each other, they're creating gravity in all these other directions. The communication of the force is in all the directions. So even if they moved out of position, it wouldn't matter because they're still getting hit by the same force that's being created. So position is sort of irrelevant in terms of, as long as you're facing in the same dimensional direction. So as long as your dimension is the same, I'm facing you in some way. I don't have to be facing you exactly face forward. I can face you in any one of those ways. I will feel, okay, you will see me. It's only when I go 180 that I show you my dark side, okay, that you don't see me. But it's a simple explanation. There, we're done with this silliness.
Space News episode, Bishop Nicholas Sykes elaborates the fundamental differences in this.
Right, so they're using bishops, Pope science. And people say this isn't a religion. Yeah, okay. The theologists, they're letting the theology of God botherers define scientific starting points. And it's not a religion. I think that's a religion.
Between the electric universe and standard cosmology.
In my Thunderbolts Space News video, Are the Dominoes Falling?, it was argued that since the gravitational attraction between the Sun and the Earth must operate almost instantaneously.
Okay, so a statement that can't be defended, it must operate almost instantaneous. No, that's not a must if you understand what's really being absorbed, which is energy in a direction. A meteor could hit the Earth at any angle, okay? Any angle on, I can't jump into the screen, but any plane of the Earth. So that if I hit it in Africa, or I hit it in the other side, whatever, if I hit it anywhere on that outward plane of the Earth with a meteor, logically that has a component of energy that would be in the direction of the Sun. That the Earth it might not be directly moving towards the Sun, but it would move a little bit closer to the Sun because there's a component of energy that's towards the Sun. All right, so you can logically understand that if we did this with BBs, that you'd clearly could hit the Earth at any one of those angles on that 180-degree plane, both dimensions, and the Earth would end up being a little closer to the Sun. Now you can't understand that, right? And that's that's how gravity really works. Gravity doesn't require direct hits. It's not directly communicating. It's absorbing energy moving in all directions that have a vector in common, that is connected vector.
Or else the Earth and the other planets would be slung out of their orbits. This fact was irreconcilable with the dictate of the theory of relativity.
So again, he called it a fact. It's not a fact. And again, it's the compatibility with the theory of relativity. It's a small part of the theory of relativity that has anything to do with speed limits. It's again, I've sort of argued it's one of the stupid parts of the whole Einstein thing, that, you know, he made statements that were just totally unnecessary to make. So the equivalence principle that's part of it is just a stupid statement to make, that somehow all accelerations are the same or all velocities are acquired in the same way, when they're not. And the different ways that you are accelerated can have obvious detectable processes. So he wanted to make this argument that it's all the same and you can't tell one from the other. So you can't tell whether you're in a spaceship moving half the speed of light, or you're in a dropping elevator, or you're in Earth's gravity. And you can tell, and the light clock was a way to tell. And so because the light clock, he understood, as the ship moves, the light clock is going to hit a lower portion of the ship, and it's going to look like an arced line if you were to mathematically draw it. That he'd have to do the same thing on Earth and Earth's gravity. So he had to make light bend, because he had to make those two images the same, because he had some stupid notion of equivalence, and it's not equivalent. it's an unnecessary statement. So again, this is not integral to any notion that there's something called a space-time that's warped.
That the fastest possible messenger between one point and another was light, or to be more accurate, the electromagnetic radiation.
So let's understand. I mean, as I keep saying, I don't know why people don't catch on and say, yeah, we really ought to do this. This isn't about the speed of light. It's the speed of force. Now, in the electromagnetic spectrum, we don't even call these other things light. We don't call radio waves light. We don't call all these other things light. X-rays, for example. We don't. So why aren't we conceding that the speed of light is a silly thing to say when all these things move the same speed? And the fact is that magnetism and gravity also share this speed. So it's really speed of force, this thing called a force. And light is a force. Light imposes momentum. So it's clearly a force. And all the forces have the same speed. I mean, shouldn't this be fixed? I mean, it's just such a fact.
Of which visible light might be a component. This is because if the supposedly fastest possible messenger between the Sun and the Earth travels at the speed of light, then the gravitational attraction that exists between the Sun and the Earth could not be messaged between them any faster than light can travel between them.
Right. Again, so this is a complete statement basically saying there's no gravity. Earth isn't creating any gravity in space. And it isn't until the thing shows up. So a tiny, tiny little atom I put in between, I put out into space. Their argument basically is that atom has to communicate its distance to the sun, to the sun, and then and the sun has to communicate back to it before that atom is changed in its velocity, in the direction of the Earth. And that's not what's going to happen to that atom. The atom's going to be instantaneously affected because the atom is going to be placed in a space that already has gravity. Gravity's already a fact. The sun has already absorbed the energy. Okay, the sun is already at equilibrium and is creating gravity in all directions, because the initial state that heated up the sun, the pressure of the sun, was an initial deficit to do that. To heat up the sun required a ton of energy, and so that already went into the system, and that fact that all these vectors of direction have a deficit, that deficit still exists in space around the sun.
Since it is known that light takes 8.3 minutes approximately to travel from the sun to the Earth, it would have to be presumed that the gravitational attraction is messaged from the sun to the Earth, and vice versa, within a period of time no shorter than 8.3 minutes also.
Right. Look, this gets a little complicated getting into the mathematics, but the mathematics for, say, solar systems and the mechanics of the universe are based on observations. So when you place into the observations the understanding that that light has a speed, the fact is that that you're seeing things in delayed locations, the math does get better. But the thing, I'll just make the distinction. There's gravity is already there, which is the same as being instantaneous in the sense that, but it's instantaneous with a gravity that was created by something else previous. Something else creates the gravity you fall into. You create the gravity that something else will fall into. You don't fall. I mean, it's like your shadow can't be cast on you. That's probably not a great analogy. Well, I've already explained how it works, I think, well enough.
However, such a deduction must inevitably bear with it the conclusion that the Earth is actually being attracted to some point in space that was the location of the sun's center of gravity 8.3 minutes of time in...
Right. It's being attracted, it's being affected by the fact that forces that were heading for the location you are in were stopped from getting there. And that's just a fact. That's what happened. There's an absence of force, and therefore you fall into the absence of force. You are pushed into it.
In the past, rather than where that center of gravity actually is when the Earth experiences the attraction. But that conclusion bears with it a number of fatal contradictions.
Again, they're proud to have a bishop do elemental physics.
Contradiction number one. Let us regard the planetary orbits of the solar system as circular, which we may do without prejudice to the argument. A centripetal force upon the orbiting Earth must be orthogonal to the motion of the planet.
Well, as has been pointed out by some real physicists, there is no such thing, okay? I mean, there's no actual force. The force has to be from the magnet, or it has to be from the string, or it has to be the energy is in some other mechanism. There is no centrifugal force. There is no actual force. There is some other force, okay, that's going to cause the motion. And you're just mislabeling it by calling it centrifugal force, because that's not what it is. It's some other force that's creating a change in the pressure that's going to move it in the direction. But there's no such thing as centrifugal or centripetal forces.
However, the gravitational force transmitted from the sun to the Earth at the speed of light will, when it reaches the Earth, be displaced from the path it would have taken if the force had operated.
Right, so this drawing doesn't really do it very well, but I mean, obviously the sun will be in a location that won't be where they were first communicating, so their communication has to change locations, and that wouldn't make any sense if you thought the Earth is essential to the existence of the gravity the thing creates. So on the surface of the Earth we have 10 meters per second gravity. It's what the Earth, all the stuff that makes up the Earth, that's the gravity that creates. Now if I put more mass on the Earth, I increase that a tiny bit. So if a new thing gets pulled in by gravity, guess what? That number changes. All the future things will be in a new gravity. I mean, this is just logic, right? You can understand clearly if I add new mass, if the moon crashed into the Earth, the Earth's surface now would have a higher gravitational rate. Now, how could that possibly be if gravity was being created by my interaction with something? See, the Earth's gravity isn't a fixed thing. And the fact that it's not a fixed thing in the sense that it's always fluctuating based on the mass of the Earth. Any change in the mass of the Earth changes the gravity. So clearly the gravity isn't about me and the Earth. It's about the volume of the Earth and the density and the mass.
Instantaneously. It is no longer orthogonal to the Earth's orbit, hence is no longer centripetal, and would influence the planet over an astronomically short time to leave the orbit.
See, I'm not even sure this whole thing leave the orbit. If you're going to be explicit about it and say there's absolutely no gravity except if you stay in a straight line position, and if you move at all, then the speed of light communication will be destroyed and you will not be making gravity anymore because gravity is a laser beam between you and the object. You could argue that there'd be no gravity. Yes, because everything would move out of the gravity it created. It would shoot its laser here, it would move out of position, and the laser would reflect to a location it wouldn't exist at, so the communication wouldn't even work.
That this does not happen. Contradiction number 2.
So there's no contradiction, there's just a lack of willingness to understand the actual mechanics rather than the cartoon mechanics.
There is no time-lapse term in Copernicus's or Kepler.
Right, so now they're going back all the way to Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton to find justifications for saying everything they said was right, and somehow nothing that, and their understanding of gravity was perfect. Now, clearly, it wasn't perfect. Some of it made mathematical sense when it was completely, when they had triangles spinning inside of triangles. I mean, it was just nonsense, really, but it worked a little bit.
Those equations for their observed planetary orbits, which do not therefore anticipate any time lapse, such as gravitational attraction functioning as slowly as the speed.
Right, so how could they possibly imagine the difference between the speed of light and instantaneous? They really couldn't. It would be silly for us to have those expectations. They could barely count minutes, let alone millionths of a second.
Speed of light would necessitate. Neither is there a time-lapse term in Newton's third law, which we interpret as action and reaction are equal and opposite. In a Newtonian helios...
Okay, so again, let's go back to the wrong answers of the past. Again, demons are the cause of disease. We'll just forget that we've learned anything about microbes and viruses. So let's go back to the past and say there are no such things as microbes and viruses. There's only demons. So if you're sick, you're infected by a demon, and we need to drill some holes in your brain.
Centric system, we understand the forces of attraction that the primary and its satellite exert upon one another to be equal and opposite. A reaction.
I mean, again, it's just such an obvious counter-argument to this much that we should have no expectation that the primitives of hundreds of years ago could have imagined speeds like the speed of light.
That was caused by an action 8.3 minutes beforehand, in the case of the Earth and the Sun, would no longer be the opposite that the law describes.
So again, as if the law has something to do with this kind of argument about an opposite reaction. You don't have to wait for the opposite reaction to reflect off something and get back to you. The opposite reaction is the fact that if you move this way, something moves that way. That's the opposite reaction. It isn't about whether or not you're in a position to receive the information as the opposite reaction. The space shuttle doesn't have to drive through its own exhaust. Clearly. All right, the opposite reaction goes somewhere else, and the space shuttle goes somewhere else, and the two of them never have to see each other again. So this whole idiotic idea that you're going to use Newton's equal and opposite reaction theory as a gravitational theory is just stupid. I mean, that's just cheating.
The effect of this can be seen from my diagram of the Sun as the reference point or frame of reference for an orbiting Earth. The issue was very well dealt with in the Thunderbolts forum of October the 22nd, 2016.
Oh, I imagine it's not rationally dealt with at all.
In which reference was made to work by Tom Van Flandern, in which Sir Arthur Eddington was quoted as having exposed, by 1920, the issue in terms of the couple which a light speed gravity between Sun and Earth would exert.
Right. Again, Eddington, a guy who isn't, frankly, I mean, they make him out to be a guy who had all this character and all this stuff because he didn't go to the war and he didn't do this and he didn't do that. But clearly, I mean, he writes in his journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. But he says to the public, yeah, we've proved it. So, lots of reason to doubt Eddington's character. Clearly they cherry-picked the evidence, and clearly it's an experiment that with all our technology, no one's felt compelled to repeat it in some sort of really good way with like an earthbound satellite where they could do it every goddamn day. They don't have to wait for eclipses. A satellite can do the experiment every day. It can do it every single day, over and over and over again. And they haven't done it. They haven't let us know if they did do it. They haven't let us know what the results were.
This is the same argument as I am using, employing a slightly different viewpoint.
Yes, from the perspective of a God-bothering kook.
I had not actually read this work before.
So again, brilliant. I'll reference work I haven't read. Great. That makes a lot of sense. Fuck. Not really, does it? Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. There's a really good argument made in this book, I've been told.
Before my video was produced. It is left to others to account for the fact that Eddington became a great proponent for Einsteinian relativity, in spite of his work on this issue.
Yes, because I guess his work on this issue, was maybe he had to concede to the truth that he didn't know how gravity was. So why is he pretending that he knows how gravity is caused and he knows anything more than the effect, just like Newton?
The connection then between the sun and the planets should be envisaged as an...
I mean, obviously he could imagine bent space traveling instantaneously, right? When you make bent space, you assume, oh, it must be instantaneous. But again, even the conventional physicists who believe in bent space concede that, no, it's not instantaneous.
An ether tightrope. In the current EU model, the ether of space is understood, as Wal Thornhill describes it, to consist of a plenum of neutrinos.
Okay, so this is their theory, that there's a bunch of these neutrino things that we somehow can detect when they're moving, and we call them a neutrino. I don't know, but when they're not moving, they're just a bunch of neutrinos in the universe, and we call that ether. Okay. It's okay with you, it's not okay with me. It's just, neutrinos are just an error in their, they do their math and say there's a little bit of energy left over. What do we do with it? What do we call it? Oh, let's call it a neutrino. Because our equation doesn't account for all the energy in, all the energy out. So there must be something else.
In our experience, a rope may carry a transverse wave caused by moving one end of the rope, perhaps from one side to the other.
So they accept the conventional understanding of the photon as some kind of dopey thingy that does this dopey crappy. So he's saying a bunch of neutrinos fill the universe, and somehow the neutrinos are connected to each other in some sort of mechanism that allows them to do some sort of waving crap. And when they do that waving crap, they somehow create waves in all these other directions, but those waves never really hit anything ever, unless it's an electron. Then the waves of the electron create magnetism or some other kind of bullshit. I mean, it has no continuity, this crap. It can't account for any of it.
Or perhaps up and down. After some time, that transverse wave motion will reach the other end of the rope. However, if the rope is made of barely extendable material, and if one end is tugged, that tug will be felt at the other end.
So he's saying there's neutrino ropes in space and that somehow you can instantaneously pull on them, and it's just bullshit.
Very much faster, almost by comparison, at the time the tug is made. This comparison may be likened to the relationship between the transmission of light by a transverse electromagnetic wave and the very much faster gravitational attraction between two massive bodies.
Right, so the neutrinos can do both. They're really talented. They can either vibrate like a rope, being shaken, or they can pull on each other like a straight rope, that's already been expanded as much as it can expand.
Electromagnetic radiation is by its nature transverse, but
so again, just a statement made up years ago, and we're stuck with it, and people just keep reciting it as if there's a ton of evidence indicating that that's so, and there's not a ton of evidence. There's really, in my opinion, if you examine the evidence is catastrophically flawed. I mean, just overtly flawed, like the slit experiments, where you can't use a consistent theory and explain single slit, double slit, and multi-slit. You can't do it with a consistent theory. Not their theory. Their theory, they cannot consistently explain the three different phenomenon. The multi-slit that's creating individual images in locations. The double slit where the photon splits in two and goes through both slits, and then the single slit where somehow I don't have to split the photon in two because the single slit photons just happen to come out double by doubling, but they don't do that when they get to the double slit. Somehow they don't create four waves. I mean, it's just crap, overtly crap. And that's the foundation of this whole fucking stupid, idiotic, transverse wave horse shit.
Gravitational attraction, or indeed, if it is so interpreted, repulsion, is longitudinal. Kepler's and Newton's laws may be thought to assume any time factor to be so vanishingly small that it can be neglected altogether.
Yes, they're just dealing with what the forces actually do. So again, they're describing in their formula the observed effects. They're not explaining to you causes. Causes aren't in the formula. Causes are a description of the effect. And the effect isn't time dependent. And so that should tell you something. If the effect isn't time dependent, then the effect must be doing something. Okay, that means the force is already there before something gets there. It's just a fact. The gravity's already there before I show up to fall in it. It's just a fact.
The EU model of gravitation requires an almost instantaneity condition too, though that almost is not claimed to be collapsed into absolute instantaneity.
Oh, well, that's a huge distinction. It's almost instantaneous. Oh. Phew. I can tell the difference. Almost instantaneous and instantaneous, sure. And boy, it really makes a huge difference. How could it possibly make any difference? I think, how does it possibly make any difference? It's almost infinite. I can tell the difference.
There is, after all, the possibility of a correction of planetary orbits that start to go astray by extra Newtonian electrical attractions and repulsions.
So extra Newtonian, that means beyond any physics known to anybody who's not an idiot. Yes, electricity travels through conductors. Sorry. That's the way it works, idiots.
Newtonian physics does not account for the orbital stability that is observed, or the small corrections that are from time to time manifest. Such corrections, however, could not prevent the first-order steady propulsion out of any orbit that a light-speed gravity...
So again, more nonsense again about the fact that the speed of the gravity without understanding what the cause of the gravity is. So again, the speed becomes irrelevant when you understand the cause.
Would inevitably produce. There are many other arguments against Einsteinian relativity.
Yes, there's many arguments against any stupid notion that there's any such thing called a time dimension and that you can warp it. And clearly space is nothing, you can't bend it. There's forces. Forces affect material objects. Newton was correct to understand this is about force. And it's about force's effect on matter. Matter moves because it is forced to move. There. That's it. Put that in big, write that in stone. Matter moves because it is forced to move. A force has to move it. Nothing moves by itself except the force. But no material object has any motion. It only can move when it's forced to.
Some of which declare that the great story of the ether drift experiments of the last century is commonly misreported.
The whole Michelson-Morley experiment is bullshit premised in the sense that there's no understanding of any of this wave interference crap. There's no explanation for how it takes place, especially in the now modern context of understanding that single photons do this wave interference thing. They interfere somehow. The interference is built into the single photon. That dilemma, that fact, hasn't in any rational way been accounted for in interferometry.
The light exceeding speed of gravity by far is but one more falling domino collapsing a credible theory.
So more hyperbole. So we didn't really make any kind of complete argument. We certainly didn't debunk any other sources of mechanisms for the sources of gravity and how gravity works. And yet we're going to declare that we have won the war and we've decisively presented the evidence that proves the guilt, and that reasonable men should all agree that we have completed our task of destroying this stupid theory with nothing as evidence. I mean, just plain nothing. And a complete straw man argument as if everybody knows gravity is something that an object creates by existing, and there is no gravity until it exists to be affected by it. You know, when clearly that's not the evidence. And let's see. So they're just as guilty as Einstein. They're just as guilty taking a tiny bit of facts and molding them into a pile of mush. They're doing exactly the same thing. It's just grossly excessive. We have nail in the coffin evidence. No, you don't have anything like that. You have a cherry-picked, straw-manned, all over the place argument. And that's all you got.
Of relativity.
And to boot, you're a frickin' lunatic who believes in some wooey god thing up in space who made the universe. After sitting around forever, he decided to make the universe with his free will. Fuck you, people. Till dead, of course.
Continuous updates on space news from the electric universe. Stay tuned to thunderbolts.info.
Love you, love you, love you, love you. Woo, 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 woo. Your little babies. La, 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 la. Can we show you some little silver balls? Let's talk baby talk to you, because you're all babies. Here's some music. Oh, soothe the little babies. Ooh. You have to go tinkle. This is music make you want to tinkle, little babies. Yes, that warm feeling is you pissing yourselves. Ugh, fucking pathetic. Bolts Group Inc. They're incorporated. All rights reserved. Yeah. This is our copyrighted God material. We need copyright because God isn't going to save us. God's not going to protect us from the evil stealers. Oh, no, we need human laws instead. Yeah. Pussies. I thought you were supposed to have some faith in your project. You need big government to protect it for you. Ugh, pathetic. Pathetic. Alright, so yeah, I think I've done my job here once again. So keep believing your fantasies. Keep people just fucking overtly lying to each other. Our evidence is great. Our evidence is fantastic. Our evidence is super cool. I mean, I saw the Franklin Who guy do this again. I mean, I wish these people would interact, these pussies. But he makes this stupid argument. Okay, he doesn't believe in gravitational lensing from the Eddington experiment. So he gets the idea that, all right, that experiment's kind of bogus. They've never repeated it. It's full of flaws. The whole theory's kind of nutty. Yeah, we can detect something moving the thickness of a human hair from 10 meters away. That's how difficult it is. Okay. We know that even optical cameras right here are affected by the atmosphere. And yes, you're going to take a picture through a mirror, through the atmosphere, of the eclipse to detect this tiny, tiny, tiny movement. In a time-lapse photograph where you had to move the mirror very carefully with the object at exactly the same rate it's moving. And I mean, come on. Yeah, so that's horseshit as an experiment. Einstein's whole doubling the effect of gravity on photons is just a horseshit statement on its face. Silly. Why photons? Photons. The fastest thing in the universe is affected twice as much by gravity. Horseshit. Just made up crap. And again, only did it because he had to defend this stupid equivalence principle. That was stupid. It was stupid to make a statement like that. Completely unnecessary to go there to make some law that isn't a law. All right, and to boot, what was I going to say? Okay, so then Franklin Who starts defending the galactic images, though. So he's saying, no, but light really is bent by gravity because, yeah, the Einstein ring is... Blah, blah, blah. The only image of a real Einstein ring is from something a bazillion light years away. It's not round, it's misshapen, it's got huge flaws in it. It has nothing to do with what you would expect mathematically. Gravity, the bigger you get, it gets perfectly spherical. I mean, the bigger you get, the more spherical things get in terms of the gravity. I mean, it's just a nonsense argument to say that these galactic images are evidence of when they're evidence against because they're so bad. I mean, they're mathematically so imperfect. And to boot, the theory, if it were true, there's a ton of places in the universe where we should be seeing huge effects, and we see none. I mean, the Einstein ring, by Einstein's own theory, should be hair thin because gravity isn't a great lens. So you'd only get at one tiny location where it would actually work, and any distance, any movement this way or any movement that way, it would deflect the wrong direction. You'd never focus to the human eye. It can't theoretically be rational to defend this crap, and he defended that. He said that's good science. No, that's worse than Eddington. The fucking galactic images are worse than Eddington's experiment. Fuck. But it's all horrible evidence. And the fact that they don't concede that, oh yeah, this evidence just isn't what it should be. I mean, we really need better evidence than this to make assertions about what the truth is. That we really shouldn't be claiming it is a fact based on evidence that is so corrupt and flawed. Shit, you people just are so dishonest. You're just so fucking dishonest. The fact that you will not admit that the evidence sucks. Alright, we'll see if there's anything new. Not that there should be. The comments are just dribbling in. And they're all gutless, coward bullshit. This is so bad. I hate this fucking scuzzy planet. Alright, Bill Gatey versus all of them. Oh, that's unfortunate. I want him to do the Ken Wheeler, finish up part 2 of Ken Wheeler. So, that'll be disappointing if he doesn't do that. But anyway. Till the next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's enough. Did I say I hate you fuckers? I just can't stand you people. God, you're just so full of shit. Piro.